Hello, you're listening to Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today, a weekly podcast designed to bring you snippets of encouragement to help you as you go about your day. I'm Jenny Guy, your host. I'm learning that what we say when we have problems is very important. So important that it can be a matter of life and death. In fact, Proverbs 18:21 says that very thing. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Today, we'll look at a woman who used the tongue's power at a critical time in her life. Let's get started. What do we say to others when they ask us about our troubles? What do we say to ourselves as we're dealing with our problems? I must confess that some days I'm much more successful at keeping my tongue under control than on others. There's a story in the Old Testament that always puts me back on track with controlling my tongue whenever I think about it. The story is about a woman whose problem was literally one of life and death. How she handled her situation is inspiring. I consider this woman to be one of the heroes I look to when I need encouragement. I'd like to read her story to you. As I read it, see if you can identify the things she did that helped her go through her terrible time and come out successfully. After I finish reading, I'll share the points of her story that encourage me. Maybe our lists will agree. Maybe they won't. But that's okay. For the goal of today's episode is to help us all see that how we talk about our situations and what we do when they arise is critical. Here's the story from 2 Kings, 4th chapter, verses 8 through 37. I'll be reading from the King James Version. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold now, I perceive that this is an holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber, and lay there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, Say now unto her, Behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldest thou be spoken for to the king, or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Verily she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, About this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, Nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thine handmaid. And the woman conceived, and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father, to the reapers. And he said unto his father, My head, my head. And he said to a lad, carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, and shut the door upon him, and went out. And she called unto her husband, and said, Send me, I pray thee, one of the young men, and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God, and come again. And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, It shall be well. Then she saddled an ass, and said to her servant, Drive, and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away, and the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her, and the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. Then she said, Did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, Gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thine hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not, and if any salute thee, answer him not again, and lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, The child is not awaked. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore, and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord. And he went up, and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned, and walked in the house to and fro, and went up, and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi, and said, Call this Shunammite. So he called her. And when she was come in unto him, he said, Take up thy son. Then she went in, and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and took up her son, and went out. Well, did anything strike you as noteworthy as I read the story? I'm sure we can all come up with different interpretations and meaningful points to remember. That's the beauty of the Bible. Its truth can be applied to all of us in all of our situations. Here's my list of important points from this story. First, it was obvious there was a problem, and the Shunammite woman was asked twice about it. The first time she replied, It shall be well. I believe that was faith talking before she had even gone to the man of God to ask for his assistance. The second time was when Elisha's servant, Gehazi, asked her about her troubles. She answered, "It is well." I think she responded that way because she had reached her goal. She had gotten to Elisha, and she knew that his prayers would help her with her problem. Second, the woman was focused on getting help from someone she knew could actually help. Yes, there was a moment of blame and accusation when she reminded Elisha that she had asked him not to disturb the childless life she had accepted by getting her hopes up for a child and then destroying them. Her son's premature death certainly destroyed that hope. But even despite her momentary lapse, the woman still knew that Elisha could and would help her by restoring her son to her. When Elisha attempted to deputize his servant to go and work the miracle in his stead, the woman refused to let Elisha off the hook. It was Elisha she had come to see, and it would be Elisha that would go back with her to her house. She knew where her help came from, and she wasn't going to accept any substitutes for it. How can these points be applied to our lives and our problems? Here's what this story is encouraging me to do. First, I'm learning to speak words of faith when things look bad. Speaking from faith doesn't mean that the situation is sugar-coated or skimmed over or minimized in any way. Rather, speaking from faith means realizing that God is in control, regardless of how the problem looks, feels, and affects my life. Saying "it shall be well" means that I am believing that God will do what's best for me as He is resolving the problem. Granted, the outcome may not be what I wanted or even prayed for, but as long as I'm trying to live my life according to God's plan for it, then the outcome will be eternally good. And it will be something that I can live with here in the present. Second, we do not have to accept substitutes in place of going to God directly first for help. What do I mean by that? Well, in Old Testament times, prophets like Elisha were God's representatives. Because the people couldn't go to God directly for themselves, they sought Him through the prophets and priests. Now, because we can go to God for ourselves, not accepting a substitute means that we don't put anyone or anything in God's place. It also means that we start with Him. We go to God first when looking for help in our troubles. In responding to our prayers, God has a number of ways by which He can answer us. For example, He may lead us to people who can assist us, or He may give us directions and strategies for actions to take. He may provide resources that will give us the support we need. These are just a few examples of the many ways in which God can and does involve Himself in our lives. How God chooses to answer our prayers is His business. Our part is to make certain we go to Him first with our requests. So, there you have it. The Shunammite, a woman who lived thousands of years ago, is teaching us how to handle our problems today. What is she saying to us? It's this: during times of trouble, speak words of faith and seek God first. for it shall be well. I hope you heard something today that has encouraged you and possibly given you something new to think about that will motivate or inspire you. If you would like a PDF copy of the show notes for this episode of Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today, visit my website at jguypublisher.com. New episodes are published each week on Wednesday. I hope you'll join me for another installment of Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today. Well, that's it for now. Until next time, be encouraged.